Right, so Keir Starmer this morning made his first major speech since becoming Prime Minister, and I think it's safe to say we all knew it was going to be doom and gloom. We all knew it was going to be all about blaming the last Tory government. We all knew he was going to lay out a load of claims that he was going to have to make tough choices in order to set the country back on course, and that things would have to get worse before they got better. Every last bit of it, though, was, of course, absolute nonsense. Because these aren't tough decisions Keir Starmer is making. These are the easiest choices he could possibly make. There's nothing easier than just carrying on exactly where the Tories left off. There's nothing easier than punching down on those already with the least. And for Starmer to claim those with the broadest shoulders must carry their share of the burden, when we know he's already chosen to take the path of starving kids and freezing pensioners, this speech was a complete disaster, and no wonder it is coming unravelled as quickly as it is. Right, so it's more austerity for all of us then. Such is the message from Keir Starmer in his, well, hardly widely anticipated first major speech since becoming PM. But we knew he would make one, and we knew it would be as bland, boring and insincere as every other speech this plasterboard offcut of a politician has ever made, where he is a completely uncharismatic version of David Cameron, and Rachel Reeves, his Chancellor, is an even more compassion and sympathy devoid version of George Osborne. Because the same choices they made, the choices of austerity, are being made again now, when it did nothing but fail the country the first time around. Fail the country, fail the economy, fail every service we all rely on. And we cannot continue to put up with more cuts, more failure, because we're at the point where services are just going to completely collapse, unable to function any further. But above everything else, austerity is a choice. And following on from 14 years of it, it is absolutely nothing like the change Starmer promised, and it is anything but the making of tough decisions, when there is literally nothing easier than just carrying on making the same choices, the same easy choices, placating the people who have your ear, the rich, the elite, the lobbyists, and inflicting more misery on those without one iota of that same level of influence, the ordinary working class people of the UK, the very people the Labour Party was created to serve, but should now be more obvious than ever that that party is well and truly gone, well and truly been infiltrated, taken over, and absorbed into another soulless husk of a political party there to meet the interests of the establishment and nobody else. It's very easy to choose to keep kids in poverty. It's very easy to strip winter fuel payments away from pensioners. All people with scant influence on the national political scene outside of the once every 5 years trip to the ballot. And of course, kids don't even have that, do they? We didn't get this nonsense rhetoric in 1945 when massive house building was done. The health of the nation was put first, and the creation of the NHS and social security was created. The rich paying their share then, the restoration of the country requiring it. Now it is required again, and there's no leadership to provide it anymore. The guy who would have set things straight in 2017 and 2019 with the vision and the policies to do so for the many, not the few, was smeared as a social pariah and a racist instead. Yet now we're supposed to celebrate the guy who is still talking up getting tough on migrant gangs to stop the boats, and who threw Bengalis under the bus during the election campaign to score cheap political points, and who is ardently on the side of Israel as they commit genocide, as being better. But no, the jam-making Corbyn was the bigger monster, wasn't he? Not the guy who has literally taken £76,000 in free gifts from establishment interests, who just says he's on our side but actually does nothing to demonstrate that. If Keir Starmer was serious about stopping the likes of migrant gangs, then he'd open up a safe legal route to asylum and just put the lot of them out of business. Their business model relies on there being no legal route, so provide one. That's a tough decision to make, though. That would invite criticism, wouldn't it? From the Tories, from the likes of Farage and co. That'd require making the moral case for migration, as Keir Starmer once said he was going to do, and selling to the public the benefits of net migration rather than acquiescing to the right wing, to the mainstream media, too many of whom are plastering migrants across their front pages every day right now just to sell their rancid hate rags. The easy decision for Keir Starmer is to just join in and carry that on. And so that is what policy and his rhetoric in this speech did. He told us he's not afraid to take the unpopular decisions. But who are they unpopular with? Not the rich. The rich will agree with all of what he said. They'll agree with more austerity. They did so well out of it last time, after all. The unpopular decisions are going to be with the general public. But we don't matter now. He's had our votes. We can all sod off and suck it up now as far as he's concerned for the next 5 years. An easy decision to make when it's only the media moguls and the donors who he really cares about going forwards. The unpopular choices, the tough choices. And we still don't know much about what these will be, this softening us up as this speech was ahead of October's expected Halloween nightmare budget as it's shaping up to be. The more, frankly, Labour harp on about it. But they are only ever tough on us, on the working class, the ordinary working class people of this country. They are only ever unpopular with us. Targeting the poor and powerless is always, always, always the easy option for a politician to take. And it is a sign of Starmer's cowardice. It is a sign of Starmer's fearfulness. It is a sign that those making these choices, like Keir Starmer, are bad leaders. That they won't stand up to powerful vested interests. They won't make the rich pay their fair share. They bow and scrape to them instead. They take their money and their donations instead. They take their freebies and their positive headlines in their papers instead, and their pats on the head in return. This was therefore one of the most spineless speeches I've ever heard a politician give, but there are those who loved it. Cue James O'Poxy Bryan.
That was a boring speech by a boring man dealing with the boring business of getting Britain back on its feet. And if you don't like that, you don't like Britain. If you don't want him to succeed, you don't want Britain to succeed. You can't possibly argue with the diagnosis of a country on its knees. You can argue with the prescription, such that he has provided, and we'll have to wait until the budget to find out more, but you cannot argue with the diagnosis of a country on its knees unless you are truly deluded or incredibly wealthy.
That Starmer is boring is pretty much the only accurate thing that Liberal Burke got right, because this isn't getting the country back on its feet. It's copying exactly what has been attempted for the last 14 years by the Tories, which O'Brien has been perfectly happy to attack. It's no different, the same people that are being punched down on, and James O'Brien joins in that by saying you must hate Britain if you aren't with Starmer on this. No, James, why should we be with him? He clearly hates us. That's why he is making the easy choices to choose to try to get this country back on its feet. And he will fail in doing that, because he won't make the tough decisions that are required. He won't tax the rich, and I'm frankly minded to ask what exactly it is about the ordinary working class people of this country you hate so much. In your own scraping deference to a man you might call boring, but who you clearly and unabashedly support regardless of that. What is it exactly you have against people wanting slightly more for themselves than to scrape a measly existence all their lives until they shuffle off this mortal coil in quiet ignominy? Dare to hope for better times means you hate Britain. Who knew I was so unpatriotic, in which case? How about you folks watching this? Anyway, back to Starmer. The talk of a black hole in the public finances in reality is just a black hole at the heart of those in government. A black hole where the hearts of those in government ought to be. And with such a massive majority as Keir Starmer has, the ability to make changes to benefit the country and society is there. But despite that massive clout that he has got, he is still too afraid to do anything any different to the very Tories he loves to attack who came before him. Starmer's speech has, looking at social media responses afterwards, reminded a lot of people of Lord Farquaad's speech from Shrek. The "some of you may die, but that is a price I'm willing to pay" speech. Because fundamentally that is the reality. Starving kids. Well, we've already seen the return of Victorian-era diseases under this last Tory government, but Labour will continue to make the easy choices to continue. Freeze pensioners. Perhaps they're seen as too much of a Tory voter base. But on the flip side, though, Oasis are reforming, guys. Hooray! So perhaps Starmer can console himself with his tough decisions on such things in his upcoming budget with some free tickets from a donor winging their way to him very, very soon. It's one scandal after another for Starmer's Labour, but the scandal of claiming to make tough choices when in actuality they are the easiest decisions Starmer could make really is the most subversive one in recent days. But there is another one at the heart of all this austerity Starmer is selling us as a tough decision on his part today that I covered just the other day, stopping the Tory gravy train just long enough for Starmer and co to have got on board, as this video recommendation will tell you all about as your next suggested watch, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers folks.